40 chess. Yeah. 40 chess. 40 chess. Let's get it.
Yo, is that T-Dog?
40 chess. 40 chess. Hey. 40 chess. This a trade show. Patreon where the trades go. Tap in and watch. That's what you came for. Ain't gotta say my name. They know my name, bro.
What's good, man?
We got McNutted in ATM. Always start off the show with a trade from them. You should always make sure that your trade is in. Patreon, why not be a Patreon? Know you wish you could spend every day with them. Tap in and say what you gon' say with them. South Harmon can fill up a stadium. Next time you log in, make sure that you bring a friend. We about to kick off, let the day begin. Go follow the socials. 40 Chess FF is posted. If your trade is an F, you get roasted. Go like and subscribe for the crew. Apple, Spotify, and the YouTube. You know Cooper got the WORP too. Let us give you a walkthrough. 40 Chess. This is 40 Chess.
Yeah, buddy.
Yes,
We're back.
And
The
we're
40 Chess Dynasty Football Podcast, episode 101. It's like starting fresh all over again.
The show goes on. Like, that actually kind of reminds me of like when you're in sales, you start every month over, right? You get right back to zero, buddy. We're right back to episode 1.
Right back. Just restart the counter over. It's like you roll your car over, on the
Yeah.
odometer.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yep.
It's good as new, right?
Right back to it.
A vodka tastes good. Especially tastes good when, let me just flex here. 19 teams in the semifinals.
1-9.
How many you got, buddy?
It's a good question. Actually, I got to count, but it shouldn't take nearly as long as 19. Let's do a home.
It shouldn't take long.
I can tell you, I know 2 that were the 2 close ones I lost. The other ones I won. So I'm in 1, 2, let's see, 3, 4, I think. I'm still. Oh, I had a bye in what's the other one? The shit. We have so many damn shit leagues. The
No way. Us have a lot of patron leagues.
what is that?
Never.
The Redux, right? Yeah, the Redux. And the Redux. So 6. Yep.
You got 6 chances, huh? 6 bowls.
So I cut down to 50%, buddy. We're when you only start with 12 though, 50%'s a lot less.
It's fair. At least it's better than none, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, I mean, even if I would have lost them all, I had some buys, but I lost 2 heartbreakers this last week.
That's true. You did get upset. Yeah, Best Ball won Resurrection by
Well, that one wasn't even the heartbreaker. I just got fucking destroyed in that one, man. My team kind of laid an egg, right?
That's fair.
But yeah, I lost those two heartbreakers plus that one. Good point. But you're in 19 out of how many leagues now? 40?
Yeah. Yep. 10 of them were rebuilders from the jump, so I still count them in the 40, but people want accountability. It's fucking Dynasty, and the right way to play Dynasty is either be all in or all out. So the ones that upset me are the 11 that lost in the first round, or I pivoted to rebuilding, not by choice.
Well, I mean, you never.
Those are the ones you want to eliminate the most.
Yeah, as long as you do that, the one you mentioned there, as long as you don't push in too soon when you're really not ready,
right.
You can never be mad about that. You can never be mad about your rebuild cycle taking less time than it was intended by you, right?
I didn't intend, and you know how I usually like to do. I like to do things in thirds, right? Like third super contenders, like I'm going for it.
Yeah.
Third dumpster rebuilds, and then the middle third is like those coming out of a rebuild team. Like we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Just so happens this is a better year, right? 50%, over 50%.
Well, I mean what that means is the teams that you were more in the middle of, right? They actually did well.
There were so many of them, man. I think it just speaks to our long-term strategy, right? We've changed and we've evolved on this very podcast, over 100 episodes, right? And some of the stuff that we do, but the core principles from when we still started are still kind of the same, right? We've always been either you're all in or you're all out. We've always been capitalized on dynasty value, not so much dynasty production. I think probably the biggest change this year, Adam, is it was perfect timing with WORP, the introduction of it. Because now I have a real understanding of Dynasty production, right? Fantasy football production as a whole. And all those teams from 3 years ago that we've been setting up with all this Dynasty value floating out there, now you can take that value and turn it into actual production and meaningful production via WORP. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. It's a perfect storm.
No, the WORP tools, I mean, been a combination of confirming and also very, very eye-opening too, though. I think, Mike, the thing that this year I didn't have, I would say this: you definitely clearly had some of those teams in the middle that you either had some chips to push in to make them get to the point of winning again, or you might have just you had one team that you lost a heartbreaker to, right? Everyone else, though, you didn't really experience a lot of the bad luck this week.
No, I mean,
I know you. I'm asking because I know the one you had a last minute loss, right?
Well, I had a last minute win. Thankfully.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't have any heartbreaking losses here. You know, Monday night.
I thought the CD one. Oh, did you win the one after CD Sunday? I thought you had the CD.
The CD one Sunday night.
That's what I thought.
Sunday afternoon. That was the one that fucked me.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, CD Lamb with that garbage ass touchdown.
Well, I was going to say that. Did you actually come back and win that one? I was going to be like, okay, he has all the fucking good luck, man.
We were done. I think I lost by 4 or 5 or something like that. So
yeah,
that doesn't matter. That league Coop is going to walk away with it as long as he gets his head out of his ass.
Well, we hope, man. I mean, Mike, can I just tell you that I think that there's definitely confirming things about this year of building the right way, doing the right process, but also, man, like you can do all that, and I think that's the majority of it, right? If you do all that, I can still hang my hat on, like, you know, literally got my hat on. I can wear it proud, man. I'm good. I'm happy. Like, obviously, I'd rather win, but if I experience bad luck, or I have, you know, a couple guys get hurt last minute, I can't trade out of, or some guys that get hurt in the game, guys that have been producing all year underproduce, that's kind of the game, right? But it's getting yourself in the position that's, I think, the most critical thing, and then having a process that in the bigger picture is going to give you more opportunities to win, right? That's what we're trying to do here. And I'll just say, though, the confirming factors are still that for me in the process we have. But even in best ball, we talk about, Mike, I think this is a point before we get into the actual discussion of the trade of the trading, but of the 40 Chess podcast today. Like, I really think this show, and there's probably others too, talk so much about best ball strategy and depth and stuff that we just talked about on a show this morning when we did, right? This is going to be the trade show you watch later. How the race to the bottom, Mike, was so hard in one of these leagues. I think that there's people are going to get better, and I'm already seeing better teams built best ball wise, which is going to actually, in my opinion, make the variance become a little more real. Because if everybody starts building better and more like the contenders we do, our edges kind of go away. I'm not saying we don't have any edges, but they're going to have the similar build to us, right? If everybody has similar depth teams with similar strong high-end upside and similar back-end field depth, week to week might be a little different. So I still think that the process is all correct and everything, but I think that as we continue to evolve the space, the variance is something I'm already experiencing. I'm kind of interested to see how this continues to play out, because part of our edge is, right, we feel better built than everybody. But as those teams start to look better built too, the variance of best ball is crazy because there's so many players, right? Like, that's the reality of it. But when we build better, we feel like we have more shots of all those players, so we like our chances.
It's interesting too because you have two different dynamics when you talk about this, right, Adam?
Yeah.
Like 1,000%, I get what you're saying, right? A lot of these leagues are more competitive than they've ever been. There's a lot more better built teams, especially amongst the patron leagues all over. Now, some of these random best balls, like, I just shake my head sometimes.
Still,
like,
yeah, very much. I'm with you. I 100% agree with that for sure.
What are you doing? But here's also the thing, like, I just gave you a portfolio of 40 dynasty teams, mostly made up of best ball teams, right? Like, a lot of best ball teams. And the success rate or the hit rate for making the semifinals, right? Not the finals yet. We'll find out next week what that actually looks like.
50%. Just
think
under.
about all that. Think about all that variance that just kind of got nuked too, right? To start from the season to deal with underperforming players, injured players, like to navigate that whole thing, and then still get to the semifinals where you're one of the last four.
Yep.
Now, I don't know if let's just say it's 25%. 10 of these teams make the finals.
Yeah.
Right. 10 of these teams place in the money.
Yep.
It's kind of like these two competing things, right? Because one is taking variance away. Obviously, when you have a portfolio that big and you can get, 25% of them into the finals and place in money, you got to say the variance went out the window, right? You nuked the variance. But in the same sense, I look in the leagues and like it's tougher within the league to do it. So I'd be interested to see which one wins out. Right?
Well, I'm not saying that I'm not saying.
Got to
go ahead.
always keep evolving. Like I think the process, you kind of always got to stay one step ahead. And while a lot of these leagues, like you look at some of these rosters, and at least in my opinion, last year, if you were to look at them, you go, damn, that's a really good best ball roster. Some of the things that we've learned throughout this year, and we've talked about on this show or various shows, still quite aren't getting implemented. Like people still don't quite want to get on board with it, right? Like you're buying in like 75%, and I still think you got that 25% edge. It's not to like victory lap or anything. It's just like, oh yeah, I see that there's some contenders out there that aren't doing shit that I would be willing to do if I was in their position.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, hand to God on it. Like, you know how crusty I will go down and get in the best ball landscape to eliminate as much variance as possible. Not all the principles are being applied, though. Like, a majority of them, and that's why they kind of look good on the surface. But I'm like, you know how many of these leagues I'm into, Adam, where I'm in the semis? And then this week's a prime example. I go look at the fab budgets against the 4 other teams I'm playing, and they're all out, right? Like the 3 other teams, sorry. Or they're down to like $2, and I got 70, 80% of my budget left. And it's like, well, this is easy because I only got 3 teams to bid out. And if the most some guy has is $3, I just bid $3 on or $4 on every single player in this league, and I block you from getting them. Like, you don't get that opportunity to pick up Trenton Irwin, who you made famous last year about this time, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
So I still think there's some edges. Like, people can still get better, and us too. Like, there's still some edges for us that we got to grind. But I think it's all going to be about staying ahead of the pack, right? Like, as everybody else raises their level, how do you get even better?
Well, I mean but that's kind of what I'm talking about there, in a way. Actually, Mike, I think we kind of agree. Frankly, like I think right now you can say, okay, you can kind of pinpoint right the edge. So, for example, you mentioned a lot of things there. So, Fab, I think Fab right now we've talked about it. I think in certain leagues I've done a pretty good job with it. And I can admit there's some leagues I haven't done enough with Fab. Right? I mean, whether that's needing to, lack of options currently, or I'm going to spend a shit ton of it tonight, in those leagues, right? But I think that we can talk about it, but then when you go out and experience L's, you can look back and say, you can listen to this podcast, you listen to other people say, Fab. My point is that we already are seeing from 21 to right now, in 2 years, there's a big involvement. And there's been a big involvement. And I think the reality is not that we can't come up with new strategies or new ways to grind dynasty markets and find a way to have an edge versus them. But I think that in the best ball format, I'm just talking about kind of right now what I'm already seeing in variance when you can be built well or not. To your point, you have had great success. I've had plenty of success. I experienced a lot of shitty losses this last week, but it happens. My thing is I think that the variance is going to become a bigger thing in best ball as people continue to evolve into, all right, shit, man, I really got to pay more attention to that. I got to do – I can't have this – I kept 6 guys or 7 guys on this roster that's only roster 27 or 5. They start to see some of those little errors that right now you and I can probably point out on whether it's our team or someone else's team pretty quickly. Yeah, this is something I think you can exploit, or I'd be trying to trade these 2 guys right now, right? As those things continue to evolve, I'm not saying we won't have edges or find new ways to say, if the tear down, we've talked about this before, if the tear down becomes too much of a thing, shoot, we'll tear up. Well, there's always a zig and a zag, but I think as the space, the way it's evolving, I think the variance will continue to play higher. But to your point, that's why I think you got to be sharper. You got to stay another step ahead as that continues to be the case, right? New startups, if people aren't in their first best ball startup, they've been listening to podcasts for a while, you might see a lot of similar top-built teams and bottom-built teams, and now you have to find a way in that market to find another edge, right? So I think that's kind of what I'm talking about as we've already seen it evolving. I think it's going to continue to get that way. So it's going to be interesting to see how we can find edges to stay ahead.
Yeah. I think one of them, right, not to toot our own horn, but WORP has been a big one. There's been a lot of pushback on it, just in general, not amongst our community. For most part, our community just kind of embraces it, but you always kind of get that one, right? Like Gabe Davis was a huge one, where people are touting him. You had fantasy analysts touting him. Look at his points per game, yada, yada, yada. What's happened in the last few weeks with Gabe Davis? Exactly what we said, right? Like he's a replaceable level player for most leagues. Fine in best ball, bad in lineup. Right? Like that's not somebody you want to be relying on starting every single week. And there was still this fever pushback, right? Like, I look at the box score, and he has these big spike weeks, and hey, he had this, and look at his total for. You use points per game all you fucking want, Adam. Like I still use it just casually in conversation, but
yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't have a place. I don't think it's a relevant stat, but it's not the most important thing, right?
It really doesn't matter to me at all. It just don't. Like I use it as a quick reference and a placeholder, but then once you dig into it, like if I'm gonna go look at somebody to trade for example, in one of my leagues, I may pull it up and I just look at the scores, right? Like where they did. If it's a best ball league, I'm also looking at where they finish. That's just a quick analysis. And then next thing I want to know is how valuable are they to this league? I go to the WORP tool, pull it up, and you find out you're like, oh, shit. Like I had this idea of dynasty value in my mind, and this dude ain't worth this shit at all. Like, all right, next, let me find somebody else. Like, but hey, running backs are surprisingly valuable. Over the last 4 weeks, like these running backs have been killing it compared to the rest of them. Maybe I'll go try to get one of those. I think those are the edges that we can still grind, at least for another year or two, until people catch up to it. And then the other one that I love, Adam, and you see it in the YouTube comments on the trade show, anytime we talk about this kind of stuff, the willingness to do what it takes to go win a title. Right? The willingness to sacrifice dynasty value in pursuit of a championship.
Definitely.
When the time's right. Like, don't do it in week 4. Like, that's stupid. Don't do it in week 8. But you get to the playoffs, Adam, and you don't have a trade deadline. You're in the semifinals now. What are you doing? Like, you're one win from the money. One win. That's it. One win from the money. Guaranteed money, too, right? Like, you get the second place prize, and then you got the first place prize. Like, you all want the first place prize, but, the consolation ain't so bad either. It's like, all right, we cashed. This is like 3-4 years free in this league now. A lot of people look at it like Jamar Chase is going to be a good one. He's out for the next 2 weeks. Done. Second most valuable wide receiver in Dynasty. If you're not looking to go buy the guy, the Mike Evans off the guy who just got eliminated or who's been out of the playoffs, and take the comparable pluses on top, like you don't have to bend the dude over. But, Mike Evans and a first. Mike Evans, and if he won't give up his first because he's like, I'm out of it. I need all these draft picks. Is there a running back you can get? Is there 2 running backs you can get? Could you piece together 3 shitters with Mike Evans in best ball who are at least starting and playing this week?
Yep.
Yeah. But a lot of people aren't willing to do that kind of thing. They go, I'd rather die with Jamar Chase on my roster, risk the fact of me getting guaranteed money by just winning this week. Because what's my team going to look like in 24? Adam, I don't know how many of these teams, too, you talked about at the beginning of this, that you had bad beats, right? Like how many where you're like, I love this team going in, and all of a sudden you're going, fuck.
Well, I do think, too, because if we agree that as we continue to push forward, the edges are going to become more important because people will start to do more of the principles of best ball success, right? Or things that give you a better chance of winning. Mike, I just want you to think about this because, listen, I know you have 19 teams ahead and you're having a great year, but I'm very convicted on the variance part of this because let's just look at this last week, okay? Because if you don't get a bye, you're looking at week to week variance. Like I want you to understand, not that you can't build correctly to kind of offset some of this variance. Just look at WORP last week at quarterback position.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're doing the right things, if you have Fab, you're probably going to get some of these guys too. But just think about if you had – well, let me just read this first, okay? This is going to end up – we're going to be 30 minutes in before we even try to get to our topic.
Well, that's all right. This is a good topic to talk about,
sure.
too.
But just think about this, okay? Now, Lamar had – I'm looking at Dynasty Bestball. I guess it probably doesn't matter a lot what league you're looking at. But if you want to look at one, I can pull up one specific just to have the same guide. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at Dynasty Bestball, one of my leagues. So it's Lamar's number 1 at .581, okay? Then look at 2, Brock Purdy, .459. 3, Baker Mayfield. 4, Matt Stafford, .39. 5, Joe Flacco. 6, Jake Browning. 7's Fields. 8, Desmond Ridder. 9 is T-Law. 10's Allen. 11, Bailey Zappi. 12, Mitchell Trubisky. Now, for example, Mike, you could have a team in Dynasty Bestball leagues, right? Now, you should typically have more than 2 quarterbacks. We talk about that quite often, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you didn't get lucky with one of these waiver pickups and you had Dak Prescott and you had, Jordan Love. I can give you a lot of guys in this list, but that didn't do Patrick. You could have Dak, Patrick Mahomes. You could have Jordan Love, Dak. You have to now, if let's say you had 3 quarterbacks that don't do anything, if the edges are smaller, like that's just a bad beat. Like you're going to have a hard time overcoming that. Now, you have obviously more chances to build depth, but the reason I'm talking about this is because as you have more shots, so does everybody else. If they're still rostering the same as us, and primarily, not saying perfectly, mm-hmm. this variance is going to be something that can absolutely sting you, even if you're built well, man. I got some teams that are great built, great use of Fab. Unfortunately, they lost this week. Now, you look at a portfolio, right? You're going to typically win more, I think, than you lose. But that right there, like that kind of speaks to weekly variance. That's just, did you get Joe Flacco or Jake Browning? Did you get Eason Stick or not? Like, right? Eason Stick versus Nick Mullins, I think, was a big one. So which one did you pick up? Like sometimes that is just the difference in a game that can be close.
This is also like, I don't know, maybe it's just differences in I don't know if we've talked about this, right? Like we just talked about saving Fab for like right now. But also, too, like in these weeks leading up, I've been the one who's been aggressive, right? Like while everybody else has been out, even if I had a Lamar, a Dak Prescott, a Patrick Mahomes, like I might have 4 or 5 quarterbacks already, right? Good ones. I'm still out there on the waiver wire cock blocking every single person because it hurts their team. And if one of these dudes pops, like I won a first-round matchup this week. Lamar Jackson's on my bench, had him, like in a best ball league, because Nick Mullins is my super flex spot.
Wait,
Mullins cost me.
Lamar was out of your for this week?
Yeah.
No, okay, well, this is a points per carry league, but this has Lamar at number 1. So I can look at a different one for WORP options. But so what was he, like 3 in that then?
Nick Mullins scored 26.12. Lamar scored 25.
So I'm sorry, I mean like Lamar's quarterback. What was he? Because I'm like for the week, what was his QB?
What sleepers say? 10.
He was quarterback 10?
And points per carry really added up.
Because I'm looking at the shit league, and he's 1 too. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm looking at 14 and 15. I apologize. I wasn't looking just at 15.
The last 2 weeks.
Yep.
Gotcha.
My apologies.
Gotcha. You're good. You're good, buddy. Yeah, he was QB1 the week before.
Week prior, that's why.
3.89 points.
I was going to say,
definitely
wow.
put him at number 1. Yeah, Nick Mullins was in there.
There we go. This is looking different. So sorry about that. So okay, here let me reread it now. All right, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy, Aiden O'Connell, which didn't make the list before, Gardner Minshew, Derek Carr, Jake Browning. Derek Carr hasn't done anything all year. Top 6. Mm-hmm. Jake Browning. It's still kind of all the same gross names. Matthew Stafford. It's actually worse. Nick Mullins, Joe Flacco, Patrick Mahomes actually made the top 12 finally. Jordan Love. So Eason Stick, quarterback 13.
I got a winner this week in the 2 quarterbacks. That's the one I was talking about. Nick Mullins in the Superflex, Matt Stafford in the quarterback spot. Lamar Jackson on the bench. Yeah,
well, here Lamar's not even. He's 15 in this one. Yep, so he could miss.
Last week, what's our budget in here? $100. I bet 33% of it on Nick Mullins.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I needed it. I had Lamar. I had
Sure.
Matt. Right? Had some other options, I think, at quarterback. Tommy DeVito, already had him. Right, been riding him for a couple weeks. He's been all right. The rest of the quarterbacks, yeah, that was it. Desmond Ridder.
Right,
was
but
the other one.
I get your point, but I'm saying you can still do that, and you could end up with Tommy DeVito, who didn't do anything this week, right? If you're there's still variance involved in that process. Like, you could still be aggressive at quarterbacks, but like maybe when you added Tommy DeVito, you have 4, and you don't want to go past your roster construction.
I guess just to my point, once we get to these last couple weeks, the roster construction thing goes out the window, especially at the quarterback spot, right? Or
well,
by
I wouldn't say
happenstance,
that much, right?
It does for me. It does for me in best ball. Like, I don't.
Well, in our shit leagues where you have 35, I can definitely get behind that.
Right. If I was in 25 or whatever,
you don't want to do that in 25.
Much different scenario.
Yep.
Yeah, but 30, 35, that kind of goes out the window because there's a lot of dudes while they have a job, right? Brenton Strange, De'Ami Brown, like those dudes I could cut on a fucking whim's notice for.
Yes.
What's the shitter's name starting this week? Mason Rudolph. Right?
Oh yeah,
Like
sure.
I will drop them in a heartbeat to spend 17, 20, 25%, whatever it takes to just block somebody.
Oh,
and,
don't get me wrong. If we're
retain
talking 35 roster spots, probably anything north of 30. I mean, I'll roster. I don't care. Probably 8 quarterbacks if I had to, because you have the extra spots at the bottom that you can cut out
Right.
of. You know,
Just get rid of them.
drop somebody even if it has dynasty value just to get rid of them. I can get behind that. But even then, Mike, like, let's say realistically, like you probably have what on some of those. I think I have in one spot. I have a 6 quarterback team. What's the most you have on one? Do you have like something like 6? Probably 5 or 6. Typically like going to get high for you.
Well, let me see what this one's rocking.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on a
7, okay.
35-man roster.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm sure there's probably an 8 or a 9 floating out there too that's still in the semis. Now that's probably getting cut down here, like as these quarterbacks die out, right? Like the Josh Dobbs, the Tyson Bagents that I've been holding on to, Kyle Trasks of the world, like these guys who were fringe anyways, and Case Keenum, who you picked up last week, who I cut, and then Adam Schefter put out that tweet about fucking C.J. Stroud. Now I'm rushing back to pick Case Keenum back up again. But those are the kind of guys that you just cycle through. But like the Case Keenum one's a perfect example. A lot of these leagues where I dropped him, people don't have fab, right? So I'm going to go right back and pick Case Keenum up for $1. Cut a De'Ami Brown or Brenton Strange or a Darnell Washington. You know, somebody else is going to be like, ooh, look, you cut a rookie tight end who hasn't done fuck all year. And they're going to happily go pick him up, and I'm going to roster the quarterback.
Yep.
And that keeps them off whoever I'm playing against, and I get the possibility of maybe they do outscore a Lamar Jackson, right? This is kind of way back to the first Bomb Squad League. Like, you remember when I strategically was all in on Davis Mills.
Right.
And then Davis Mills, like,
but in the same breath, like, I just want to have like transparency about the reality of variance, because like in that scenario, you blew all your fab and you had no fab after that. That was a great move, right?
I still had fab.
You blew a ton of your fab though. You didn't have the hammer anymore.
Like 70%. Yeah.
My point is you didn't have the hammer to do what you're talking about beforehand.
If I had everything to do again, right? Like I spend 15, 20% tops.
Well, I mean, you also didn't know that you were going to outbid everybody by a country mile. Basically, no one even bid much, right? You didn't know that. But I'm not talking about doing that. I'm just saying that if you now, like to that point where you get Davis Mills, right? And you spend, X amount. Not that wasn't a heady move, but now you don't have the hammer in the playoffs to be able to, like, cock block. You did, I think, one time. You were able to cock block somebody that had spent all of their fab, right? But you're not going to be able to say, all right, I can make sure I guarantee these, and these guys in the playoffs when you lose
now to
majority
your point,
of your.
If more people get on board with this kind of strategy, and we start to get to, like, if I started to get to some of these semis, and there's a few leagues, like leagues where you're in the semis too, like we're opposite 1 and 2 seeds, which is kind of rare for us. Usually we both pick an opposite direction. But it's been a weird year where we also have a lot of teams that both suck.
Well, I mean,
everybody else is playing for the championship. We ain't doing nothing.
I think we used to when we were in a smaller portfolio. I think we used to typically, like, all right, I can see Mike's going for it. I can see Mike's rebuilding. Like, let me go ahead and go the opposite. But now, I think we're in so many leagues. It's like you're not going to be able to not compete or tank in the same league at times.
Right. But like some of these I've gone to, and I'm like, damn, man, Adam's still got most of his fab budget. Like, I can't block this dude. So now I have to be even more strategic, and I'm like, man, I hope Adam blocks. At least we keep these other two turds from getting this guy, and then we'll see what happens if Adam and I meet up in the championship. Like, who's got the hammer for the guy then?
Right, and I think that's the other reality too. Is so for example, Mike, I had the Fab Hammer actually on one of those. I'm thinking, all right, I spent a little bit of money. I got Nick Mullins, right, but I still have like right now I still have about 80% of my budget, but I lost. Now I can cock block as I want to, but that one doesn't have a trade deadline, so that's an area hopefully we can avoid. I'm actually going to push Mike in every single one of my leagues that doesn't have a deadline to strongly. Like, I'll put all the points in sleeper, do whatever I can. Like, why are we doing this to ourselves? It's really dumb. Because now I can go get them, but for what? Just to screw everybody else over? It's almost pointless.
Oh, leagues that have a trade deadline.
Yeah, right? So I have 80% of my fab. I can go control everybody today, but for what reason? I'm in a 5th place game that doesn't mean shit. I'm done for the year, and they're not going to have any dynasty value.
Yeah. I just do it out of pure spite. That's all I do. But yeah, it's even more beneficial in the non-trade deadline leagues because it's like, okay, you want them? You know, I just spent 60% of my remaining fab that nobody wanted to trade me for. Give me a 4th.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean,
4th.
And listen, I think that if anything, the conversation we just had as a whole in totality, because we could go do the same thing at all the positions. The point I'm making is that I'm already starting to see more of it. Where, like, Mike, if we had built these teams that we're talking about right now in 21 or in 22, even just last year, Mike, I'm telling you that 19 goes up. I'm not in 6 games by far. My point is, I still think this show and what we talk about, even though I caught some bad luck this year, I didn't roster some teams perfectly. Like, you had both of our teams together, and it shows strongly why a lot of the principles here work. And I still think we can continue to find those edges, but I just think when you start thinking about some of the variants here as more teams become built correctly or decide to just nosedive and fix it, you know, just the luck of the draw. Did you get Nick Mullins or did you get Easton Sick? Did you have Ty Chandler already? Were you rostering him incorrectly all year and you got benefited now, right? Like, those are the type of things I think that can end up winning a matchup because the way that best ball has 30 fucking dudes randomly 1 week can pop off. And you talk about happening 2-3 guys. Did you just happen to hit the right guy or not? Right? That's where I think it can go into the space because I'm already starting to see more of that than I used to see because teams are built better as a whole. Now, I'm not saying we can't still edge some of that, but it'll be harder and harder to do as more and more teams build right, I think, is my point.
So I'd be interested to see, like, I'm going to look at WORP here for this. Just pick a random shit league. Not the IDP one.
Oh, boy. Well, why not?
Because that's a different beast.
I'm playing. I know.
Like, even, there's no lead that's safe.
Leave it out of here.
That's one of those no lead is safe.
Yeah, don't use a different league.
When you get a TJ Watt or a Khalil Mack that can go for 80 or 90 or 100 plus on a given
Max Crosby,
game.
You know.
Yeah, one of those dudes. Let me just do shit auction 3. I don't even know if I'm.
That's fine.
I believe I'm not.
All right, shit auction 3. I'll pull it up too.
Just week 15. I just wanted to look as a totality for shit auction 3, and let me get the actual league settings too, so we know this going in. What they are. It's great for radio right here. Love it. Episode 1 starting off the way a lot of our other stuff. All right. So it's 6-point passing touchdowns, half point for first down, point per carry. Yes. No point per carry. Okay. No point per carry, half point for first downs. Full PPR, half point for first downs receiving, and a 0.75 tight end premium, and then all the extra like big play bonuses.
Yep.
Shit auction 3. So last week, just for week 15, right? You named all those shitter quarterbacks, right? And I see some of them in here.
Yeah, plenty of them.
But
right?
players who were the big WORP difference makers, right? The league winners for this one: Christian McCaffrey, James Cook, 1 and 2,
Yep.
Baker Mayfield. It's a little bit surprising right there. Jared Goff. Wide receiver would have been Jalen Waddle, David Njoku, Cooper Kupp, Sam Laporta, Brock Purdy, Jordan Addison.
Well, just think about that. This is kind of Mike. This is a highlight of what I'm discussing about variance still in best ball, because in best ball, see, here's the thing. In lineup, Mike, the reality is probably teams that have been rolling out Waddle week in and week out ain't going to be that good, frankly. Right? He's not been very good this season. And Njoku, Baker, best ball allows a lot of teams that roster those guys still to get in. So now think about this, guys that those are guys that didn't do really anything for you all year outside of CMC.
Right.
And Njoku hasn't been a hammer. He's been good though. Waddle has definitely not been that. And Baker he's been solid, but he's been middle of the road at best at WORP, right?
Follow me here though.
Okay.
Chris McCaffrey's a stud.
Yep.
Jalen Waddle's got a lot of dynasty value, or at least did, for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
I put him on that list.
Yep.
Jordan Addison maybe, and Sam Laporta. That's only 4 dudes out of the top 10 though who are like big time dynasty value guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Could be stuck on somebody's rebuild team. Could be somebody's hammer piece like they thought that they had. Right. None of those guys that were in the top 10 though, total WORP for this league though, are like pure shitters that you got by luck. Right?
You mean
like
top
these
10
are
all positions?
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. Like these are guys who these are kind of guys who you build with roster construction, right? You use the principles we've talked about for a while. Tear down, multiple shots. You know, how many you're starting. It's best ball. You want like all these dart throws. These are the kind of guys that not dart throws, but you want all these solid players who are going to give you above average WORP. Before I get to like a shitter that maybe somebody got lucky with, Aiden O'Connell, which was 16. Ty Chandler, 18. That's only 2 in the top 20, Adam. Like,
Right, but go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying with like the variance, like getting lucky with them.
Well, I mean, because Mike, but just
Jake Browning comes in at 25.
Right, but just think about that though.
Noah Brown and Easton Stick 29 and 30.
Right, but think about the top 30. Okay, let's just use for the sake of argument. We're talking the top 30 to 35 guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about significant names in here that have done nothing for rosters all year. Mm-hmm. And, for example, now, Aiden O'Connell, to your point, he did not outscore Baker Mayfield, and so therefore his WORP was not Baker's. But if Aiden O'Connell you get to throw in to replace the down week you had of Dak, or you get to have, you had 2 quarterbacks do terribly. It could be Aiden O'Connell that week that all of a sudden saves that. Or it could be vice versa, where you might have a shit quarterback room. Like, let's say you snuck in the playoffs, your quarterbacks have really been bad. And now granted, Aiden O'Connell is not like a WORP. I mean, I don't even know if he's not really a WORP difference maker. He's quarterback 4 in the week. That type of a thing. Look at how many names are in the top 30, though, right? So just think about this. Now, to your point, there's plenty of guys that are part of your roster construction that are the reason that you're in here and probably winning leagues if you advanced, right? Mm-hmm. We just named a shit ton of them. Guys that don't really fit that bill in here, though. Josh Palmer. Now Josh Palmer's someone you should have rostered in roster construction, but
yeah, he'd be like your 7th, 8th wide receiver.
Yeah, Aiden O'Connell, Ty Chandler. You talking Jake Browning, Noah Brown, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Easton Stick, Joe Flacco, Nick Mullins, Isaiah Likely. Honestly, Mike, I would make the case for him because the only reason he ended up happening to be that because he got hurt. He got the injury in front of him too. I mean, you go down the list, Mike. I mean, top 40 for the week. David Moore from Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
Like now, this variance doesn't have to just be against you. This variance can absolutely be for you, right? I'm not saying it's just going to spotly hit one person. I'm just saying that variance. There's a ton of variance in this in a weekly matchup. So, to me, I think it's a couple of reasons I wanted to highlight this. Frankly, for me, and you can let me know what your thoughts are. One, I think it's more important than ever as this continues to happen to earn a bye, because now you take the variance down to 2 weeks instead of 3. And then the second thing is, I think in the playoffs, I probably next year, Mike, will actually make moves more aggressively with trading for Fab. Like, actually basically valuing it as higher than like a 3rd-round pick. Like, instead of asking for a 3rd or something in my rebuilds, I want the draft picks, but on contenders, I'm going to be aggressively asking for Fab in the trade so that I can actually try to get more shots of these guys.
Right. I think we'll touch on that. Fuck, this is just going to end up being a best ball show with Theory Crafter, but I love it. So your second point, I'll start with that one. 1,000% yes on that. I am absolutely
and we've talked about that, but I feel like I haven't been I wasn't aggressive enough of trying to trade for Fab. I think this year I'll make it a point. Next year, sorry.
Today, in one specific league, like I'm looking at it and I go, not really like feeling. I never really like felt Luke Musgrave, and I know people like jump down your throat about it, but like I've never been like a huge Luke Musgrave guy. Like
sure.
I've been more of a Tucker Craft guy. You've seen him do really well over the last few weeks.
Yep.
Luke Musgrave's on injured reserve. He might be coming back this week. I did see like the Sleeper puts that little yellow news thing next to it, so maybe he's coming back. I don't really give a shit either way. But I'm looking at it and I'm going, well, he's still got dynasty value. Like there's still people out there. So I shopped him around in a league, and I ended up getting Taysom Hill in like $70 in Fab or $90 in Fab or whatever the hell it
nice.
was. Just let me get that cushion, right? Could I have gotten a 3rd for Luke Musgrave? Sure. Could I probably gotten 2/3 for Musgrave? Probably. But, getting Taysom Hill, who, best ball, maybe he's got a shot. Maybe he goes into my quarterback spot if everything's really bad for me. Like I have a bad week, maybe that's a little bit of buffer. And then the Fab, that was more important than the draft pick. So I'm 1,000% with you on these contenders. Like, maybe early in the season while you're kind of feeling things out and you got like one of those teams where you're like, I feel good about it, but I also know shit happens, right? I also know that, I could be down a Joe Burrow. I could be down an Anthony Richardson. I could be down like, holy fuck, now I'm going to piece together a QB room for the rest of the season. Getting all those 3rds in those early deals, probably more beneficial to you, right? It gives you that cushion where you can pivot and you can kind of do a lot of things. But as you get later, right, you get to week 12, 13, 14, 15, you get to the playoffs. Yeah. Fuck those 3rds, Adam. Give me all the Fab, man.
Well, Mike, I'm talking about from early. I'm talking honestly. Okay, so I'm being to the point of when we talk about the edges becoming more of an important thing. Mike, so
start from the jump.
Yeah, early in Mike pocketing it, constantly taking Fab money in an extra kicking in a deal. Can I get $30 here? Can I get $40 here? And someone's offering me a 4th-round pick. You know what? What if you kick me $50 in Fab instead, in a counter, right?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, because Mike,
if it involves 3rds though in the early part, you're still taking the 3rd, right?
I'm not saying that there's not a place for draft picks. I'm not saying not to value draft picks because you can still push them in. But I just think we always seem to forget, even when we talk attrition, why are so many of these names in this list, Mike? This is really, I guess, highlighting another point that it has to be exploited if it gets down to more edges. We're late in the year. These guys have been playing game after game after game after game, and they're tired and they're hurt and they're dealing with injuries already, and then they get more injuries. Attrition always kicks in at the end of the year. It's why playoffs are meant such a big deal in Fab, I think, because some of these names don't have a role at all. They have a role because of injuries, and I think that's something that can be exploited. So, Mike, it's not that I'm looking to get the Fab early in the year to, say, grab a guy in week 6 off the wire. I'm quietly trying to pocket the ability to do this at the end of the year, or in a scenario where, hey, maybe I have the strongest quarterback room, to your point. Maybe I start blocking a little more, maybe a couple weeks earlier, because I have a little extra money that I've been pocketing, saving.
I get you.
Like, I want to be the guy that blocks and gets people away from these type of guys.
Okay.
I think that's an edge that can be done, and I think on the converse side, Mike, I might try it in certain spots because it's not that I don't want draft capital in 3rd and 4th round picks on rebuilders. But Mike, here's the thing about Fab that I don't think we're quite exploiting high enough. If you're a rebuilder and you have the Fab, a lot of times I think what you'll see is the budget just gets thrown into the wind. Like, and it's just gone at the end of the year. Now, what do you ultimately want in rebuilders? You want
Draft
the picks.
capital. Yeah.
So guess what? Guess how I start to leech and suck dry all the guys. Pause. In in my league. Guess how? I claim Easton Stick because I have the hammer.
You have the fab. Yes.
Now I have 4 teams in the playoffs right now. Well, let's use this year. Let's use this week instead of Easton Stick last week. Let's use Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
I don't want Mason Rudolph in my rebuild.
No, I don't care.
But guess what? I'm going to get Mason Rudolph because I know there's 4 teams that for this 1 week are going to give a shit, and I can try to get a draft pick out of them. And I created a draft pick out of fab money.
You're aiming for a third. If you get a fourth, you don't. Thank you.
I have 4 buyers, Mike. They ultimately decide what the market is.
100%.
If it's fourth, it's fourth. If I can find one that's going to give me a third or 2 fourths, that's what I sell for. But my point is, you're going to run out of this fab money at the end of the year. I'm going to go make it a draft pick. And I think the fab, if just by reading all that and talking about the variance, I think at the right time, fab is probably the most crucial piece to the edge that you can garner and have against your league mates in the variance. Okay. Controlling that the best you can.
I think the way we'll end it, because you and I'm going to track this, and I promised, and we've had I'm interested to see what the results are. I'm like 70% for 1 and 2 seeds moving on to the finals, right? And you're
I said 30. I said 30 out of 58, right? So basically 52, 55%, whatever the hell that is.
But you talked about like having the buy is so important, right? Especially when we're considering best ball. I would say the buy is of utmost importance in lineup leagues because the variance is through the fucking roof, man. I don't know how many countless 6 seeds I've seen go on to win championships because they get a Jerick McKinnon, right?
Oh,
and
you know what?
The Stones to start them every single week.
Real quick, I don't mean to interrupt you because this is going to be to your point, though. I think we already have a stat we can go through right now. We can find out how important the buys were. Mike, all those leagues, we can go see how many 1 and 2 seeds would have lost last week right now.
Ooh.
I'm not saying we do it on the podcast. I'm just saying, though, that no, it's a big deal. That's absolutely a big deal because, Mike, you could have a team that has the most points for that didn't earn the bye.
Well, it's a different strategy, too, like for some of this stuff, right? So, Case Keenum. If I'm a 1 or 2 seed and I got a bye, like I wasn't bidding on Case Keenum at all last week.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because I'm thinking that's a 1 week starter. I'm not wasting fab on a 1 week starter. You guys have fun. You guys get your 1 week starter. Like if I was wasting money on a quarterback in a Superflex Best Ball league it was a guy who's going to be a multi-week starter. I don't know if like a Nick Mullins came into it. Aiden O'Connell is on rosters already. Jake Browning's on rosters already. Tommy DeVito is on rosters already.
But I mean, I get that. But at the same time, like so for example. It's not like in the data set there's some guy that really is going to throw this off. Like Case Keenum was quarterback 23. I mean, in WORP. Like, because I mean, Mike. I mean, if you want to call it, I would say it's at least worth polling, just because. Yes, there's maybe there's 1 or 2 people that you didn't bid on, but it shows the variance game still.
Okay,
like
we'll go through it.
I think it just highlights the same point you're going to make when we track the 1 and 2 seeds for here on out, right?
I got you. So AF fuckos. We'll just start at the bottom of.
Are we gonna do? You're gonna do all of them on air? Okay.
Yeah, we'll just do them. Sean, the 1 seed, would have lost. He only scored 175 points. Would have been the least out of everybody except for Blitzing Buzzard, who was the 6 seed.
And he's alive because he earned the bye.
My team, as the 2 seed, would have beat the brakes off every single person in that league.
Yep.
We had no upsets. 4 beat 5, 3 beat 6. Let's go to Arkham Asylum. 1 seed. If I had played E-Tron or J-Cap or Delanya, I would have lost. Right, so out of the 4 teams playing,
you would have lost to 75% of them. Yeah.
As far as like actual upsets, 4 beat 5, 3 beat 6. 2 seed would have been fine. Snake balls. These are the old ones too. These aren't like fresh startups.
Yeah, sure. These are the 21. These ones were 21 startups. Yep.
The 1 seed would have lost if he played everybody but the 6 and 4 seed. As far as actual upsets, 5 went down to 4, 3 beat 6.
Okay.
Rusty tromboners.
Just so you meant the 4 lost to the 5 there, or both of the
4
teams?
lost to the 5.
Got it. Okay, you said it the other way around. I got you. I follow though. Yep.
I am the 1 seed, would have beat everybody. 4 here lost to the 5, and 3 beat 6. 2 seed would have been fine too. Expo League, interesting. 1 seed's fine. 3, we finally got an upset. We got a 3-6 upset. 6, okay. Ike. Shout out Ike. What's
Ike.
up?
What up, Ike?
Ike takes down the 3 seed, and 4 takes down 5. Unfortunately, the 5 was Matty Q. R.I.P. Matty double tap.
Double tap. Rest in soul.
Double tap. Shit. The OG shit league. Adam, both you and I would have been fine.
Yeah, those are 2 of the strongest contenders, and I'd argue in some of any leagues.
The second upset of the 6-3. I don't really care about 4-5. They're so even, but 3-6.
Mullins lost, right?
Yeah, your buddy Kevin lost.
Mike, I'm telling you, that's what's crazy though, because Mike, if he was, I think we could track it, but it's done for him now. But again, I think for that shows for him. Now our teams were built really well, but that could have been easily reversed if we would have been in the 3 seed. That's why I think it's such a big advantage, and part of the reason the number is going to end up being so high. All you got to do is win 1 game now to get to the final game.
No upsets in shit C2C either way. 2 seed and shit 2 was fine. Another one. 3 lost to 6. Again. That was shit 2, shit worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah, if I had played the 5 seed or the 3 seed or the 6 seed as the 1 seed, I would have got geeked in shit worldwide. Done. Castle Black also as the 2 seed would have gone down. 5 beat 4, yep. And 3 beat 6.
I have a league like that where I actually in the 3 seed had to play, but both the 1 and the 2 would have lost to everybody this week.
Shit 4, the 1 seed absolutely nuked it.
Killed everybody.
For Burrito Slayer, shout out to him. Like you always hate that too when you're so far and away the top scorer in a week you're not even playing. You're like, damn it, use the good surprise on you guys.
Yeah, that also can happen. But at least you were safe that week, right?
No upsets here.
Okay.
Whatsoever. Shit auction. That's also a couple years old. 1 and 2 were fine. 4 and 5. 5 beat 4. Another 6 seed, 3 seed upset. Shit auction redux. I'm just gonna do the leagues that are a couple years old, right? Okay. Because we kind of talked about those ones that are fresh startups. Everybody's a little bit closer together. 4 beat 5, 3 beat 6. You as the 1 seed, other than playing the 4 seed roster beta rip, you would have gone down to every other person in the playoffs.
There you have it. I got lucky one time,
Which just means you're going to come back and gape whoever you play this week.
You would hope so, right?
Right. Yeah, the rest of these are all fresh startups here. Savage 101, 3, 4, 5, Boredom 6, yeah. Okay. Lineup please. Let me look at some of these because these lineup leagues some of these I've had forever. If we had any upsets. 3 beat 6, 4 beat 5. Yeah, no upsets there. I'm not going to look at the 1 and 2 seeds because if you're like me in a lineup league, you had a 1 or 2 seed. I didn't even set a fucking lineup. I didn't care.
Yeah, that's fine. You can. I don't think in lineup it's even as much of a discussion because we already know the variance in lineup, right?
This one 3 beat 6, 5 beat 4. And one more here. 3 beat 6, 5 beat 4. got one more here too. I forget because some of these I'm just like I haven't paid attention to in forever because my lineup teams are rebuilding. Most of them, Adam.
Yep.
Well, we got a 6 over a 3 in this one. I got 2 more here. Another 6 over a 3.
Yep.
And
that happened to me in lineup.
Another 6 over the 3.
Michael, because in one of my lineup leagues, so the top 2 teams, 0.4, were the 3 and the 4 seed. That's it. It's over.
Done.
Both teams lost in the first round, and I'd argue those are 2 of the top, if not the 2 top teams in the league.
So I think the overall theme of it, lineup, there's a shit ton of variance.
Yeah, we know there's variance in lineup week to week, right? Because you have to set a lineup. There's only 9 players, 10 to 15, whatever it is that you're starting each week.
I think there's definitely less in best ball, for sure. Quite a bit less. But to your point, Adam, like the overall theme of the show is that variance is getting bigger by the day as people get better and better at playing best ball.
Yeah.
Better and better at tearing down, better at keeping their fab budget, better at knowing WORP advantage players. Right? Like what the difference between a Christian McCaffrey and a Ramondre Stevenson in the offseason really is. Fucking massive.
Right.
Massive.
Well, and I, actually, as we're talking through this, I think there's an easy way to kind of word the variance difference, if you will. Now, holistically, this is not in an individual league. Any freaking thing is possible. Okay, depending on how people are rostering and how people set their lineups and lineup. But in lineup leagues, right? The variance comes down to the reality, okay? Remember what I was talking about earlier with like Dak having a bad week, and guys, if you had Dak and Tua, you had 2 guys that were actually very good at WORP and made a big difference. But in a lineup,
and you started them this week,
exactly. Right? So you can't cover up in lineup. So essentially, what happens is you're going to go down swinging. Yes,
to what we're talking about in best ball, right? Like if I had a Nick Mullins, a Jake Browning.
Yes.
Aiden O'Connell, like as my 3rd, my 4th, whatever. I might have 3 and 4, right? I may have picked Nick Mullins up this week. I had Aiden O'Connell.
Jake Browning could be on your team too.
Yeah, for example, like those dudes pick you up, and all of a sudden hey, I'm glad I picked those dudes up. They saved me. Start those. Nobody was starting those dudes in a lineup league over Tua and Dak.
That's the point, right? So I want to try to highlight the difference in wording. So for example, it's deodorant, right? Like the stank was still there, but you had it covered up, right? Now, and if you think about it, though, the reason is, Mike, the variance is you're going to go down swinging with your guys. So the variance comes down to attrition and how your really good players play. Now, because you're only starting 9, 10, 11 guys, if you've had Tyreek Hill as a hammer and he doesn't play, that's going to probably hurt your opportunity to win, right? And if you had CMC in almost any of these teams, you're going to be fucking probably just fine. But you're going to go down swinging with your top guys. The difference in best ball, Mike, is it opens up a giant can of worms. So like in lineup, you can't wear the deodorant, right? You're not going to have those guys. But the reality is, in a game that would be very, very close, everyone's going blow for blow, you just added the ability to tap in 15 other random fuckos. Right? So the variance actually comes down to the turd burgers in a way in best ball a lot of times. If it's close, if both teams are rostered right, the difference is going to end up being who had Aiden O'Connell, who had Jake Browning. In best ball, that's where the variance, I think, as the teams become better built and they're not, underutilizing roster spots, they're tearing up too much, right? As you start to weed some of that out, that's the difference in the variance, basically, is who's going to be winning and determining who wins the game.
Well, let's look at one real quick. I lost shit auction 7, right?
Okay.
This week.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it was a strong contender. It's like one of those dudes, one of those teams where I'm like,
I'm actually not in that league.
Like I made the playoffs. Oh fuck! I think
Nice.
you didn't do a good enough job tanking.
Okay.
Yep. You know what I mean? Like I didn't pay enough attention to it and tank properly. But I'm like, hey,
Well, guess what happens, mate? Six other teams decided to tank too. So guess who's in the playoffs, right?
Exactly. He had Baker Mayfield. I had Stafford. Right. So I'm already down 20 points in this league. Baker to Stafford. And Stafford had a good week.
Yeah.
Had a good week.
That's what I mean. He did.
Jalen Warren to Kyron Williams. Like, there's another 24-point swing right there in his favor. Zeke, for me, to his Rashad White, that's a 20-point swing.
Yep.
My Addison went off. His Cooper Kupp went off a little bit more, so 3 more points to him. Chris Godwin, he went off for me, 33 points. His Noah Brown went off 25, and that's probably what you're talking about with the shitter, right? Like, if that isn't Noah Brown, that's
yes.
a Deontay Johnson,
Well,
which is his next
he's
wide
already
receiver
got
in his
two.
lineup.
He's already got two. So he got hammers out of 2 guys that aren't hammers at all. Baker and Noah Brown. Baker's at least part of roster construction. Noah Brown's a shitter, right?
Noah Brown is the shitter in this scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the shitter doesn't have to outscore the counterpart in Chris Godwin.
No,
But
but
if
all
the
it has to
shitter
do
comes
is
close-
remove warp 50 or warp 80 and become
Nullify it.
yes.
Yeah, just deaden it a little bit.
And that's where I think, Mike, I was talking about you're hitting the crux of what I'm talking about there, because it's not, you don't have to be warp 1 or warp 5, but if you have warp 12 versus warp 60 on your roster, right?
Now, Trey Tucker scored 22 points for me. So talk about
there you
shitter.
go. That's a shitter too.
His Deontay only scored 18. So I'm just going right across the board here.
Okay.
So we're having a shitter battle, but I'm already down from all those other guys.
Sounds like 2 teams that aren't on bye right now.
Tucker Kraft scored 21. Michael Mayer scored 19. Hawkinson scored 19. Jerick McKinnon scored 19. I don't know if you want to put him in the shitter category. Elijah Higgins, for me, definite shitter, scored 19. His Cole Kmet scored 18.
Wow. Elijah Higgins outscores Cole Kmet.
Cortland Sutton 14. Joe Mixon 18. Derrick Henry 10. Achane 12. Thielen 8. Okonkwo 11. Russ 31. Gardner Minshew 32. So now, while we could match shitters back and forth, like, I think we probably had the fair amount of shitters enter our lineup and score a reasonable amount of points, his steady guys outscored mine.
Right.
Now, let's just take away the fact, for example, if he doesn't have a shitter in Noah Brown or a shitter in Jerick McKinnon enter his lineup at all, his next options are Josh Reynolds at 8, Rashid Shaheed at 7, and all of a sudden those 20 and 10-point advantages he had at the top don't mean fuck all.
That's the point. And honestly, Mike, here's the thing. Think about the variance again there, right? Let me just this is actually a pretty good example of what I'm talking about. Noah Brown just came off a 0 week. So if Noah Brown's at 0 and Josh Reynolds is in there at 8, you're talking about a 17-point variance on that right there.
Right.
That doesn't have anything to do with roster construction. That just who happened to go off that week. So I think like as the margins get tighter, those type of things are going to become what actually wins and loses ball games. And I mean, I'm looking at, I have, of my 3 losses that I really thought I had a very good chance to win. I mean, you have a good chance to win in any matchup, but 3 teams that you felt good about, right? All of which I believe were the 3 seed, actually, Mike. So in those, there was 2 that are decided by 12 points. Do you have Noah Brown, or do you have? Let me scroll down and we can get crusty here. Let me find a receiver that's I mean, Josh Reynolds isn't really that because he should have been on rosters, but Trey Tucker, he scored points though, right? Did you have?
Dontavian Wicks.
Dontavian Wicks scored well though. I'm trying to find like a guy that's a shitter that didn't actually score well. Like, there's a million of them. Byron Pringle, whoever. If you had a different body, a warm body in there that's a shitter that doesn't go for 25, that could end absolutely. Raymond. There you go, something like that.
Diami Brown.
All those types. If that's the case, you lose the game.
Brandon Powell.
So Mike, I think with the variance, that's why I talk about the fab and especially earning a bye in best ball. To your point, variance I think will always be higher in lineup because you're starting a smaller set of players. The opportunity for a certain amount of guys to go off is different. But in best ball, I think as it gets, the edges are tighter. That bye is huge, man. You only got to win 1 game versus you have to have 2 weeks of avoiding some crazy team going off.
I'm looking at all these first round best ball rosters where I lost it. I'm seeing if there's like one that didn't have a shitter who entered the lineup. He just took a flat L.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Nope.
Yeah, probably not.
I took an L here because somebody had DeMarcus Robinson. You know what I mean?
There you go. There you go.
Nope,
and that's
no
and
Brown.
Mike, can I tell you though? You shouldn't even be mad about that. You want to know why? That's what we've been preaching.
Yeah.
Go get Robinson. Go get Noah Browns.
I gaped JCap this week in the Deep Sea League, right? The Stop a Special League.
Yeah.
Right? Case Keenum, DeMarcus Robinson in my lineup.
I mean, but everyone. The thing is, the reality is, everybody should be playing this way. Everybody should be filling the back end of your rosters with as many of these turd burgers as you can. You just hoping one goes off. And I think as the roster construction becomes closer to everyone's really utilizing all the spots correctly and optimizing their rosters, the variance is going to get wild.
So yeah, this is probably right. We want to speak to the points too, like going out when we talk about best ball, right? JCap's pretty sharp. He plays in a lot of leagues with us. He's on the South Harmon team. Made the great Sleepier.
Yeah, sleepier.com. That's JCap, right?
My original point about how like most people kind of follow these principles and they can kind of put up a good fight, but you still got about a 25% edge. Like if you're really committed to it, like maybe it's just, I don't want to sound arrogant in it, but like I still feel like there's people who just don't want to go to that level that I'm willing to go to, especially when competing. We're facing off.
I'm not disagreeing with that point, by the way. I agree with that point.
Could JCap beat me on variance this week in this league? Yeah, I'm fucking with you, Adam. Like it could happen. Definitely could happen. But there's some things, right? Some little edges. Like he's rostering Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who's not playing, right? Not starting. Boston Scott, not starting. Kirk Cousins on his IR. Didn't trade him before the trade deadline. C.J. Beathard, who's, was a good pickup a couple weeks ago when we thought Trevor Lawrence was going to be out. But once you knew Trevor Lawrence was playing after that, cut C.J. Beathard. Leonard Fournette hasn't been called up after practice squad yet, right? Terrace Marshall hasn't done fucking anything since preseason of his rookie year. Right? Hunter Long, who's on IR, right? Like, this is the kind of thing, right? You could have got a shitter.
Now, Mike, I have the
Trey Tucker.
Mike, you know what's crazy though? So, there's been a point. This was not the episode we planned to talk about everybody. We don't even normally plan episodes, but we had one planned today. We'll have to bring it to you later. Yeah. But Mike, as we're talking through this, when I first made my initial point, okay, about how the variance is going to become a bigger thing, I want to, in my opinion now, by playing in both formats, quite a bit, frankly, because you've played all you had was lineup before best ball, so you've seen lineup for fucking years of fantasy, in Dynasty too. Here's the difference. I think right now a lot of times there's a how do I want to put this? There's a notion out there. There's a thing said about best ball pretty much that it's these people are they want to be lazy, right? That you don't have to set a lineup and all.
No skill.
Here's the thing though, Mike. Can I tell you the truth about best ball and lineup? What I've found by playing as many as we have, you have to be more active in best ball to win as the edges get closer than you do in lineup. All you have to do in lineup leagues is make sure you're setting your roster lineup on time. Right, so you have to basically make sure you're monitoring injuries and have the correct roster plays in, and the variance comes from not putting the right players in your lineup. Okay, but Mike, you know what you can do in lineup leagues is completely ignore, for the most part, if you have a good team. Like if you don't get hit with a shit ton of attrition, you can still, even with that, trade and you can ignore the waiver wire. You can ignore your bench. It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Guess what in best ball you can't do? You can't get away with that as the teams are going to start getting better and utilize all those. Mike, it's actually going to be harder in best ball to get away with not paying attention than it is in lineup.
You know why we always get like the really gross questions on start sit on Sunday mornings? Is because that's the only one that they have, right? Nobody's coming on there asking like, hey, Mike, should I play DK Metcalf or should I play fucking Trey Tucker this week? Nobody's asking that shit. Ever. Nobody's thought goes through their mind. Should you play Trey Tucker or should you play DK Metcalf? The thought goes through your mind, is when you have really close players and you just can't fit them all together. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like you're down to one or two.
Or yeah, in the lineup league, when you do get hit with attrition, right? So let's say in a lot of the lineup leagues that don't have huge roster benches, right? So you're picking between guys you normally don't start. You're looking at matchups. You're not looking at a name cachet that you always just auto start. You're asking those questions. But to your point, it's not, hey, DK Metcalf or fucking, Dami Brown. No one's asking that, right?
Right. The toughest part about best ball is sometimes letting go of the dynasty value, right? You can be a Hendon Hooker fan, right? I took him in the second round, still eating it. But if you're at this point in the season, though, it's like you just let that shit go. He's a fucking zero to me.
Right, that's the carryover where because there is no taxi squad, right, and because people have a hard time parting with someone that they've just gotten on their team and they've looked at for 2 years and they've heard about and they're excited about down the road. They don't want to cut bait. The difference, though, Mike, is really like in the key times. Man, if you were to fall asleep for 1 week on the wire, that could be what makes or breaks you in best ball leagues. Like I think there's what I'm trying to highlight here is that there is a massive misnomer that in best ball leagues you can just coast and win. I'm not saying it's possible probably after the first year in a startup, right? Not the likely scenario. But the reality of best ball is actually grinding in best ball can pay bigger dividends.
I'd be interested, right? We give this guy a lot of shit.
Uh-oh. Who?
A lot of shit.
Is this a player or is this a manager?
He doesn't listen to us, so it doesn't fucking matter. Sean, 12.
Oh, yeah.
We've put up with his ass for 3 years. We put up with him for 3 years. Here's one cool thing about Sleeper that I love. Tracks activity. Okay. Sean is the 1 seed in this league. Right? Over that time, I think Sean's won one. Oh, he hasn't won a title. He's been a bridesmaid a lot. But he's been a good team.
Right.
Ever since the startup when Adam and I clowned him about some trades he made, like he's just gone on to like just be consistent every single year. All 3 years of this league.
Yeah, we took all of his picks till 2024, which is coming up, and here he is the 1 seed. So all those picks we were hoping were early didn't happen, right?
I don't think he's got any picks now until 2026, so like he's consistent with it.
Sure.
But over that time, like this year, Sean has made 67 roster transactions. He is out there grinding the waivers on a daily basis in a best ball league. And there's a reason that he has success. I challenge a lot of people who are in these best ball leagues, especially the ones on Sleeper, go to your league history and just look at transactions.
Yep.
Look at activity level.
I can tell you right now, Mike, that's
for your 1 and 2 seeds. Like the people who are up at the top, I would guarantee like the most successful teams in your league are probably the ones that are most active. Like they're grounding. They may have great roster construction, Adam, but how many times have you and I none, I can tell you, but how many times have we seen like a team that, damn, they just drafted so well out of the startup and they didn't have to do nothing, or they just made a couple trades here and there, but they're not out there grinding the waiver wire almost every single week, like trying to find that gem.
Yeah, I can tell you. I can tell you for sure that the teams, especially Mike, that did not get directions picked or are needing that they need some TLC are the ones that I didn't grind as much in the waiver wire. Right, I didn't have as many transactions because I wasn't as closely paid attention to them, and I can absolutely speak to that point. That listen, if you have enough trades and you have your roster top to bottom, it gets so really good. That's actually where it gets harder because you're having such a different time with transactions, right? That's actually where it can be a little troublesome to have it, where we've talked about this, not to the point of you can be wrong about it. Like you don't want to cut bait on some of those guys at the bottom of your bench because they feel like they have dynasty value. And guess what that does? It makes you weekly not get through the wire. And that can end up being something that hurts you. I agree. I fully agree, man, with the wire. It's huge.
I love it too. And listen, man, Dynasty is a niche in itself. Dynasty Bestball is even more of a niche. But it's a niche I love. And a lot of people have these, what you say about it, misnomers, misplaced ideas about Bestball, Dynasty Bestball. I think a lot of it does stem for, we have this crossover, and I talked about this on the Spotlight with Ryan McDowell this week, which was awesome. Big shout out to Ryan for being able to do an interview with him. That was a bucket list item of mine that
it was pretty cool.
I got to check off. I was like going to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. You know,
you gotta love when I'm listening, knowing Mike's nervous, and Ryan says, "Yeah, I still get nervous to get on the podcast." You know,
I'm nervous as fuck talking to you right now, Ryan.
Right. At least that was some levity right there for both of you, right?
But I think a lot of it too with best ball, like we hear best ball, and a lot of people's brains, at least the general public, probably goes to like the underdog format, right? They're thinking draft master, like that style where you just draft a team and you never look at it again until, you know, this time of the year when you're like, how did my underdog teams do? Oh, well, some of them good, some of them shit. You know what I mean? Yep.
Some may be good, some may be shit.
Yeah, the way we play Dynasty Bestball, though, like, it's a grind. It's a weekly grind. It's a daily grind. You need to make trades. You need to make waivers. You need to keep on top of it. You need to make sure that you're within roster construction, you know, parameters. Right? I kind of talked about, like, quarterbacks for me anyways. Once I get to week 14, 15, 16, like, that shit goes out the window. Give me all the quarterbacks playing. If you got a job and you're starting, I want you on my roster. Just to keep you off other people's rosters. But
the main thing with that is in the leagues that we play, because we have so many bench spots, right?
Right.
That would be a caveat. The only asterisk to that is if you play in like these leagues where it's starting to roster 27, 25 or less. Now you have a problem rostering all those quarterbacks. You can't do it.
And I can confidently say, at least from my experience, now this isn't the official opinion of South Harmon. This is Mike's only opinion. If you play in roster 25 or 20 best ball leagues, like, you're fucking doing it wrong. You're doing best ball wrong. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
good on you, but it's also like 18 leagues. Like, I just don't give a fuck, and I'm not interested.
It's not. I'll say that it's not the way I want to play the majority of my leagues. I actually don't mind playing certain leagues that aren't really 10-team or 8-team leagues, because even if it's not my preferred format, it gives me better understanding to talk about all of them.
I get you. Yeah.
But yeah, I prefer to have the deeper benches than. I want the waiver wire also to be more barren, so that when those guys come up, they're a lot more meaningful, right? I don't want that waiver wire sitting out there with a bunch of guys that are pretty good every week.
You heard it, folks. Hop in those Adam DMs, invite him to some 8-team leagues. He wants to know how the other side lives.
There we go. I just said outside of the 10 and 8-team leagues, I'm interested in the other stuff. See, you know,
all I heard was that you wanted to play in an 8-team league.
This is why you can't have a podcast with Mike, because he hears what he wants to hear. All right.
Shout out to I believe it's T Williams is the username on YouTube, but he's always asking 8-team questions.
Oh yeah, T Williams, and I purposely, for Mike's sake, because he thinks I want to play in 8-team leagues. I know how much he hates 8-team leagues. I put it on there. One of my favorite ways to end AMA is with the T Williams 8-team question.
Love it. Love it. Adam, I thought this was pretty good. We were going to talk about trades. We'll get to that at some other time. We just did a trade show, or a trade strategy, so, you know, we got plenty of time. But
yeah, we can
I thought this was a good conversation, too, and kind of figure it out. And, hey, it is next week at this time. I'll have some data for you.
Yeah.
All right, Adam, I can let you know how many of these 1 and 2 seeds are going on. We can settle
Mike, I feel like
dispute.
we also had I didn't start jotting it down until halfway through, so I don't know if you did. I feel like we had a pause in time before we went over what teams won and lost. Did we get a number, or like how many 1 seeds would have lost in the first round, or the 3 seeds? We went through that information. Did you jot anything down on it?
No, I don't. I don't got enough toes and fingers.
All right, because the way I was listening to it, like, I didn't get it all clearly, but there was definitely a handful of spots where the 1 seed would have went down.
Well, this shirt does say expert. Okay, it doesn't say expert mathematician underneath.
There we go.
It says fantasy football trash talker.
Well, because
I am an expert at. I have a PhD.
Yeah, as long as you keep gifts around, Mike's gonna be in the A+ lane. You're gonna have a hard time winning.
If I got access to gifts, you're screwed.
Yeah, that's first and foremost. But because to highlight what we talked about and make sure, you know, you kind of are forming the thoughts that we've expressed. The process, I think, still it's actually proven more so than ever that using the roster construction, using WORP, building the right way, having your team built right, and having fab, especially at the end of the year. Those are the highlights for me of this show as far as trying to continually build on your best ball rosters. We talked about kind of our differing of opinions, I guess, as the space pushes forward with the variants. We didn't get a clear answer on this. We'll have after this week the data from what teams that have the 1 and 2 seed actually make the finals. But from what I heard, we didn't have the actual numbers, but there was a fair amount of 1 and 2 seeds that would have lost. There was a couple times they both would have lost. And there was plenty of 3 seeds that also lost too. And when you have – the reason we talk about the 3 seed is there's tons of leagues like the OG shit league where the 1, 2, and 3 team are all pretty close. So the fact that the 3 seed lost, didn't have to buy, huge information. So that's a separate point. But I think we all can at least agree after this show that earning the buy is massive in best ball because it gives you one less chance of random people to – screw your great season, your great team.
I would say I read off 13 leagues, which I would refer to as the OG 13. You know, kind of like the series The Boys, right? The 7. We're going to call it the 13.
The 13 that were not drafted this summer or this offseason.
The 13. And I would say as far as 1 and 2 seeds going down or a 1 and 2 seed going down, probably about 33% because there's probably about 4 or 5. Same for 3 seeds who went down. Now, not all in the same league, but just spaced out over there. So,
in the 13, you only named like 3 teams that went down.
Yeah, well, like 1 or 2 seeds that would have lost. Most of them won. Like they would have dominated.
I think I misheard you. I think we need the.
Right.
I think we need to get the abacus, buddy.
We need a replay.
Yeah.
That's what Christian's for. That's what we got a video editor.
Now,
short out of
the majority is it would be over 50, but okay. I guess I don't actually know if it's 66% or not.
We'll get you the real numbers when I give you damn near 30 best ball leagues this with 1 and 2 seeds.
Now that's a different conversation there because
right.
It's you have a 1 week window just to get to the playoff game, right? That's one of the earning the bye is.
How many 3 seeds do you have in best ball that you feel good about?
Actually, Mike, this year I had a fair amount just because random points for. I had 3 teams this year that were the 3 seed that had the most points for in the league, one of which lost. Yeah.
Were they in shit leagues or were they like randoms or home leagues or?
Let's see. 2 were definitely not shit leagues. I'm trying to see if the third one was a shit league or not.
Don't include Best Ball Resurrection in that because I was going to gape you.
I don't think I had the most points for in the league anyway. That one.
I don't think you did. I'm pretty sure Eric did.
Yeah, actually, no. None of those are shit leagues.
Oh, shit. No, I had the most points for in that league, and I was a 4 seed. Look at me go.
But that's actually to the point. Not even the 3 seed they had the most points for. So, like, you feel really good about that team, too, right?
Yeah, but I didn't start making, like, win-now trades till week 6 or whatever. All thanks to our buddy Dynasty Alex.
But wait, here's where. See, you can't have your cake and eat it too, Mike. I'm here to tell you, I'm here for the bullshit. I'm here to knock out the bullshit because you can't say that the 1 and 2 seeds always have the better chance when you know what? But this team that I have the most fit, I have a ton of interest in is a 4 seed because, Mike, the reality is there's going to be other teams that do the same thing, right? Like you start to build it midway through, and now all of a sudden that 1 seed that maybe looks great didn't have the draft picks, didn't use their fab right, and they're kind of reeling going into the year versus the 4.
I'll be nice and agree with you, but also like I challenge you to find a 4 seed like this one.
Oh, I mean, I'm also handicapped to the leagues that I'm in with right now, which is how many?
That's true.
Like there's 4 seeds across, even sleeper that have that type of a team. I have a 3 seed that I would put up against your 4 seed for sure, but it's a 4 seed too. So I'm just talking about teams that don't have a bye that could have lost. To your point, you could have lost, right?
Discord debate. Let's do it. Xbox, we'll get in. I'll have him be.
What's Xbox gonna do?
Well, he just got gaped by this 4 seed. So
yeah. Oh, I mean no one's telling you the 4 seed's bad. I mean, well, you made that trade right beforehand, which is fucking huge. You got CMC.
I shouldn't say gaped. Like if I didn't have CMC and James Cook, like
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if gape is the word that I would use if you didn't make that trade right before you would have lost. But
I'm saving the Gateman for Eric. All right.
There you go. By the way, Eric, shout out to Eric. He beat me in Royal Rumble this week. And Mike, can I tell you, although we just talked about how important it is to grind the edges, Mike, I did not make a single transaction in Royal Rumble this year and got a playoff win. I don't know. I got told that I lost this week.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I haven't made any transactions. I haven't paid any attention to it.
I was hoping a friend could tell me how I did in that league.
You can. I'm not the one, but someone can.
Did I win the belt?
I don't think so. Eric, though, might have a chance to because he just beat me this week. So
let's go, Eric.
Anyway, yeah.
Man.
Those are the main points, I think. Variance, planning for it, planning the fab money, and I guess I would say the majority of this show is Mike's gloating.
What?
Yeah.
What?
We went through all your leagues in every single format.
Well, I'm just saying.
I'm also just Mike doesn't like when I bust his balls too. What?
I can't gloat about lineup leagues. I think I only have 2 alive.
I know. I'm saying we went through all your best ball scenarios.
Best ball leagues.
Yeah.
Best ball leagues. Yeah. I mean, you don't get the moniker Teardown King for no fucking reason, Adam. Like that's earned.
Well,
you just don't give that to anybody. Come on.
I mean, yeah, debatable.
Debatable.
Definitely debatable. But the the crown's pretty sweet though. The Teardown crown, pretty sweet.
Fizzle still hasn't put that in a song, right? Like he refers to you all the time as ATM, right?
That's because that's all I call myself. You call yourself Mike though. You kind of go by Mike, right?
That's fair. But just once, like Fizz, just one time in a song,
The Teardown King. It's a little like, it's kind of like Wembanyama. Like you can't throw it in there. It's harder to throw in and rhyme with. Probably.
Is that hard to rhyme?
I don't actually know.
About,
I don't know.
Could you do TDK? Like, can we make that a thing? TDK.
I don't think you. You know how you said not just anybody gets to be called the Teardown King. I don't think you can get called. You can't start nicknaming the nickname. Or like go by an acronym of the nickname. I don't think that.
Can I be like? Well, I guess TDK would be like Tokyo Drift King.
Yeah, you could just call him whatever the hell you wanted to, right?
I could be like the guy who was at Friday Night Lights who then, drifted around corners in Tokyo.
Speaking about drifting around corners, I'm going to try to get us out of that corner and on the rails and out of here because this is what we call off the rails. We do this a lot, but I'm not going to make all of you painfully get through this. So, yeah, that's all we got. I think this is a good discussion. It's going to be good to monitor too. How many teams actually go through, and I think Mike, another thing to do, at least when we talk through it, if it's on this show or somewhere else, is monitor how close it is too, because the numbers will be the numbers. Whoever wins and loses is going to be clear and cut, right? But what we're kind of talking about with this is the evolution of the game of best ball in Dynasty, and so like, what kind of margins are we looking at too in these wins, right? Because as teams continually get better, I think those margins become slower or less and less, which is why we're talking about how important it's going to be to continually do every extra step to stay ahead of your league mates. And just remember, when your league mates are playing chess, play 4D chess.
That's going to do it. Stay ahead of your league mates. TDK out. Peace.